the Know Your Gear podcast.
I have an Ibanez base with a Jatoba fretboard. Normally I use the F1 oil from Music Nomad, but I saw something about using baby oil. Is this true? I have never used baby oil on a fretboard. I have heard everything. I've heard, I'm just telling you what I heard. I heard people using vegetable oil. I've heard people using water. I've heard people using gunstock oil, tongue oil, lemon oil, Crisco. I'm not exaggerating. Vaseline. Everybody's got a thing. I've heard some people say you should never put anything on the fretboard ever. I've heard it all. What I have done for years is there was a guitar tech that I knew, and for years he just bought lemon oil. He just bought lemon oil and like furniture lemon oil, like lemon oil for furniture, and because he could buy it by the gallon, it was really cheap. I kind of follow under this kind of logic of, I really like the idea. Look, I'm not convinced that a lot of the stuff that these manufacturers that are making fretboard conditioners are better than anything else you can get. It's just kind of like my logic is I use a brand. I pick a brand usually that I like. Okay. There's a Lizard Spit's a brand I really, really like. Music Nomad is a brand I really like. But so, I've heard negative things about Music Nomad's F1 oil and polish. So, if you look on Sweetwater, they have a lot of negative reviews. I have not experienced that. However, I have experienced with F1 oil, because I started buying it in bulk, that when it sits for a year or two, it does change. It's really like sticky. So I just went ahead and just swapped it out for new stuff. I'm sure somebody's going to have some suggestions, but let me just stick with my thought process. My thought process is I pick a product, I use it consistently. If there's an issue, I know exactly who to go and talk to. Okay. And that's my big thing. My big thing is I'm more, find what you got to take your chance like I did. That's basically what I did. I looked at all the players involved. A lot of companies used terminology I didn't like. The guy at Lizard Spit literally would drink his products in front of you at the NAMM show, and I thought, well, if he's going to drink it, I'm going to stick it on my instrument. But mostly what I care about is this, and this is me personal. Everybody's not going to have this same situation. I can get a hold of the owner of Lizard Spit, and I can get a hold of the owner of New Music Nomad. I actually believe if you wanted to, you could as well. They don't seem like they ditch people. I cannot get a hold of the owners of these bigger companies. And to be honest with you, when brands like Gibson or Fender, and again, I'm not saying anything bad about their polishes and their conditioners, they don't make that stuff. They outsource it, and they change all the time. When I was a dealer, those companies would change vendors all the time. It felt like I say all the time. I mean, every few years. And so I just got to the point where I was like, you know what? I'd rather deal with a product where I know I can get somebody on the phone and say, hey, look, I've been using this on this $4,000 guitar for the last couple of years, and here's the issue I'm having, and have someone actually say, okay, here's what I think it could be, or here's what it is. So I just kind of keep it that way. And then, but there's certain things like, for instance, what's the, I love D'Addario as a brand, but I don't use I don't use what product of theirs. It's the one where it looks like it has red dye in it. And I just didn't like that. I thought it was weird. It stained my rags red, and I thought that was weird. And I was like, I don't know what was in it. And they don't tell you. And somebody mentioned Dunlop 65. Dunlop 65 is a funny one because I used to use, before I switched to Lizard Spit and Music Nomad, years and years and years ago, I used to only use Dunlop. And one day, a customer came in the shop and asked me specifically what's in the Dunlop, finishes and oils and stuff, the lemon oils and stuff. And I said, I don't know. And I looked in the bottles, it didn't really say. And I go, well, I'll reach out to Dunlop. I reached out to Dunlop, and they said they couldn't tell me. Now, granted, I got an employee, and then I got another employee. And but either way, I couldn't get an answer. As someone who's actually a representative of that product. In other words, I have to sell that product to somebody else, and I couldn't find the answer. So that's what turned me off from that kind of stuff. It's like, look, if you're not going to tell me what's in it, how am I going to know, if there's a problem? So that's kind of the thought process. But as to the main question, so he says, what about coconut oil? So he said linseed oil, all that stuff. I've heard it all been used. You can use whatever you like. But again, it's it's your guitar. I definitely have a different mindset. It's not even that I'm like, it's like my guitars are special. For almost 20 years, I dealt with other people's guitars. And so it became, I'm accountable to them. And I really wanted to know what I was sticking on somebody's guitar if there was a problem, and I told you, it's why I'm very firm about guitar stands and the materials they're made of and stuff. It's like anything that I'm going to have to answer for. And if you've ever owned a business or had to work with the public, the worst feeling in the world, the most stressful, intense feeling is someone with a problem and you can't help, but you're responsible, right? It's a very horrible feeling, right? Very horrible. It's like, I don't know how to fix your problem. I technically helped you cause it, but I don't know, and I can't find anybody to help me. And so I became very focused on if I couldn't get somebody on the phone. This is funny. I'm going to go on a weird tirade right now, but so this is the one thing I've learned over the years, many years of being on YouTube now and working with all these artists over the years. They tend to say the same thing about artist agreements. I used to believe, like a lot of you, and look, and I'm not saying it's one way or another is a fact, but I'm just telling you my personal experiences with this is I used to believe that artists jumped all the time for money. This company will pay them more money, so they jump. That does happen. Don't get me wrong. That's huge. But I have found more times than not, same answer I just gave you. If they can't get somebody on the phone, if they can't get help, they're like, look, I don't want to work with a company where I can't get help. It's just that simple. An artist once said, it was really funny, that basically they had an issue. Fans were like, hey, I bought this product because you said it was good. I'm having an issue with it. And they're like, okay, I'll ask the company to answer the question. The company wouldn't respond to their emails and texts and calls. And they're like, I'm the face now of this, and I can't help my fans. So I feel the same way. It's like, if I can't help you with the answer, then I don't want to deal with it. What I will tell you to answer this question is, no matter what you use, everyone's going to have a very strong opinion about what it did, it's how it's going to hurt your guitar. And it's always funny to me because it's not like I don't want to sit there and go, well, I repaired a lot of guitars. And let me tell you, because I repaired a bunch of guitars, I know the answer. I can only tell you, like, here's my experiences, but you have to understand, like, who I hang out with, that's what they do too. They repair guitars or they build guitars. And that's who I mostly hang out with. And they tend to have the same experiences. There's some experiences are different. Like, for instance, if you're in Indonesia, you have a very moist climate to my very dry climate. Those are going to be different. But when we talk about certain things, and the one thing I will tell you is I have repaired more without a question in my mind, I've repaired more fretboards from not hydrating them than overhydrating them. I've heard that if you use too much fretboard conditioner or oil on your fretboard, that the frets will lift out. I don't know. It's possible. Why not? Anything's possible. But what I can tell you is if you go through and I look at all the repairs I've done, I can tell you that I repaired way more guitars from fretboards cracking or having issues from drying out than I have from somebody overhydrating the guitar. And so I'm not saying you can't overhydrate your fretboard and stuff. I'm just saying it's not very likely. Who the hell are you out there? It's like, every day I just go out there and oil my fretboard every day. In my experience, most people think they're oiling their fretboard a lot. You're probably doing it twice a year. I mean, and if anyone wants to know, like, what do I recommend? It depends on how often you restring. And why I say that is if you restring once or twice, 3 times a year, like let's say once a quarter at max, I'd say, yeah, if you oiled your fretboard every time, you'd be fine. I don't think that would be too much. I don't think you need to do it 4 times a year, but it wouldn't be too much. If you change your strings like every week, that's too much. So I tend to oil fretboards when I restring guitars because I don't restring guitars more than, let's say, once a year. It's not very common for me to change my strings that often because I can rotate guitars. So I don't have to, I'm not making the strings, I'm not wearing out strings that fast. Yeah. And then just for a habit, if anyone wants to know, my habit for oiling or treating the fretboard is I always treat the fretboard when the current strings are on it. So the strings I'm going to take off, I just oil it underneath the fretboard. I get the strings all oily and stuff. I don't care. I just do it. It's just easy. Clean it all up and then I yank off. If I'm doing a restring, if I'm doing a setup, that's different. But if I'm trying to be fast about it. So if you like this clip and you'd like to watch another one, you can click right here. And if you want to see the entire episode of the podcast, you can click right there. As always, thank you for your time and know your gear.